Hi guys, welcome back to the Trysted Soul Experience. I'm your host, Mark Reid, as you know, and today sitting with someone that really represents the future of holistic healthcare, mental healthcare, emotional healthcare. Someone who's bridging the gap between traditional psychology and holistic healing in ways that are getting remarkable results because she's asking the questions that most in her field don't, in my opinion. So, Zahra Ciardi is a registered psychologist and founder of Ascendant Bali, where she's created something revolutionary, the 7:1 expert to client ratio, 21-day immersive program that's achieving 94% improvement rates in clients who've often tried everything else. Wow, I can't wait to get into that.
Yeah.
But what makes Zahra's approach unique isn't just the luxury setting or the intensive care. It's how she's integrating neuroscience-backed treatments with what she calls holistic soul work to create transformation that goes deeper than symptom management. That is right up my street. So here's a little something that I don't like saying should terrify us, but get our attention. Despite having more mental health resources, medications and therapy options than ever before in human history, we're seeing mental disorders, emotional dysregulation and human disconnection, what many argue are all-time highs. So Zahra, let's get straight into the juicy stuff, right?
Yes, thank you.
Because this is something that needs to be addressed.
Sure.
Why are we getting sicker despite having more solutions?
Yes.
And what the hell is actually going on in the world and the inner world of the everyday human being?
Absolutely. It's kind of disheartening to see that more than ever we've got support, access to information. You've got, pocket AI therapists. You've constantly got support, but we've got a population that's sicker than ever. And that, I think, should scare us as a population. We need to be taking this a little bit more seriously and digging a little bit deeper than a surface level solution. I genuinely think that even though everything is just, a click away, it also has overwhelmed us. I think as humans, we can only tolerate so many options before having too many options actually overwhelms us.
Yes.
And in a world where, our minds and our bodies are used to village mentalities and we're used to small communities and access to only, a certain number of people at any given point in time. Now the world is just a click away and we've got access to millions. Millions of people can see us and we can see them. There's a visibility fear that's happening all over the world. There's I guess in some sense, there's a fear of constantly being exposed and being seen. So we're all kind of walking around pretending to be people we're not, because there's an expectation on how we need to present, and not many people can keep up with that. I don't think anyone should have to keep up with that.
No, I agree.
But where we've got all these chat groups and social media and all of these incredible technologies, and yet we're the most loneliest we've ever been because the kind of contact we're getting is not the kind of contact that reaches your soul. I mean, there's so many other reasons why, but the correlation between the technology advances and mental health deterioration is huge.
Yeah.
And I think there isn't enough things to safeguard people. While technology is explosively growing, we're not actually protecting our people or putting protective mechanisms in place.
That's a beautiful retort, beautiful response. It was a deep question. It's an even deeper answer. It's got so many layers and threads to it. I want to start with the fear of invisibility.
Yeah.
Where do you think the fear of being seen comes from? And can I just dovetail that with a little bit of, would you agree with me that a lot of people that you maybe think our social media has is think that, they've no problem being seen?
Yes.
But a lot of it is an act. Not, and I know that sounds quite contrived, I don't mean it that way, but it's like a protective mechanism of, I have to be seen in this way. And we look quite vivacious and like extrinsic and extroverted when we're actually really, it's the introvert that just never really got accepted the way we wanted. So we're still perpetuating that. I don't feel safe to be seen as I am, but at least I can be seen as everyone else. Would you agree it's a deeper fear of rejection?
Absolutely. And I think it's, visibility. There's one way you can be visible. Yes, you can put the highlights reel forward. You can decide from society and your peers and what's online, that's acceptable, so I'll be visible in that way. But true visibility is really about finding safety and I guess in some sense even joy in being able to be seen in all of you. And I get it. We don't have to be, vulnerable at every moment of our lives. Vulnerability is a dial we can turn up and turn down. But in the moments where we can actually turn the vulnerability up and be seen for our rawness, our realness, our flaws, our imperfections, this is where a lot of people become afraid to actually show that part of themselves. And a lot of it has to do with the shame of being seen as different and then being either alienated or ostracized for that difference.
Where do you think that stems from, though?
The fear of being different? I mean, it's survival, isn't it? So shame as an emotion is highly protective, evolutionarily needed feeling. So we develop this emotion so that we can remain with tribes. Because if I feel shame, then I'm going to act appropriately and be seen as acceptable. You don't feel shame when you're not in front of people. Shame is usually a social emotion more than it is anything else. So if I can control my own behavior through this feeling of shame, I'm more likely to stick with the tribe. If I'm in a tribe, I'm going to survive.
Wow.
However, in a modern world, where that necessarily isn't needed, we're not necessarily living out in the wild, going to be attacked by animals and things like that. Shame seems to now be controlling us in ways that actually take us away from authenticity and living out a really meaningful life.
Yeah. Well, there's so many different things. My head's spinning here as well. Like, even... So it'd be safe to say in the modern world, a lot of that is learned within the family dynamic, yeah. Like, even like comparison between siblings. Shame, I'm not like my big brother or big sister, so if I'm more like them because they get praise from mum and dad by behaving in certain ways, or if I'm more like them, then there's a higher automated safety mechanism in that there. Well, I was like, I'm not going to get rejected here. I don't feel less than and not good enough. But what came up for me there, actually, it's even mentioned in like religious texts and things like that. It's like, shame on you.
Yes. And
I'm like, that it does run that far back.
Because shame is the best way to control people, right? If you can make someone feel ashamed, it's the quickest way to make them small. And when someone is small, they're now contracted. And they kind of generally want to hide. Shame makes people, their throat closes.
Yes.
So they don't speak. So they're no longer speaking their truth. And they're contracting, so they're not in the way and behaving in ways that could get in your way. So if you really think about it from a manipulation and control perspective, shame is the greatest way to control society.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get into politics or anything like that. We won't go there. But shame does allow people to control each other. In fact, I say to my clients who come to me who are experiencing a toxic level of shame, 9 times out of 10, if not more, 99%, let's say, I'm pulling this number out of thin air, but it's very close, of your shame is unjustified.
Yeah.
You feel it, but actually when we look at the facts, it doesn't fit the facts.
Yeah.
And so this shame, you're still going to feel it, you're still going to experience it. You can let it run your world, and then you can let it stop you from living out your life the way you want to, or you can do opposite action to that shame and feel the shame and do it anyway. We always hear feel the fear and do it anyway. Yep. I encourage you to actually feel that shame and do it anyway. Do the embarrassing thing. Be visible. Show up in your life the way you want to.
Wow. I love this. I love that we're roughing this as well. Right, so a couple of things. For me, when I talk to my clients, I love David Hawkins, love his work as well, but I don't agree that shame is the bottom frequency for people. Through being in this space for like 15 plus years, the root cause that I see for people all the time is actually unworthiness and not good enough. To me, it's a rung below shame. For me, and I'd love to know your take on, I was going to say the 2, but probably 3, is guilt and shame are closely linked. Yes. So we've got, do you remember the Mr. Men? Or you get little Miss. So that's how I teach our clients in our Be The One program. Saying like Mr. Angry, Mr. Fear, Mr. Depressed, Mr. Grief-stricken, Mr. Guilty.
Which is the parts model.
Mr. Ashamed. This is so. You can't have hashtag self-love for as long as you're denying these parts of you. I say, so invite them in for a cup of tea and hear what they have to say, but they don't need to stay overnight. I say, but for as long as you keep rejecting them at the door, it's going to get bigger. Your anxiety doesn't go away. I said, I had chronic anxiety attacks, but when I learned to love what they were actually teaching me. So the guilt and shame comes up for a lot of people say, what's the difference? For me, I think guilt is something you have as a residue of what you've done or not. It's like associated with an act.
Yes.
What I've done towards that person, oh, I feel really guilty. Or what I didn't do but should have, I feel guilty. Take away the act, for me, like shame is just, I'm just a bad person, no matter what. For me, underneath that again is, I'm just not good enough. And for me, like being unworthy of love is really what they're saying there. That's saying you're unworthy of life. So to me, because love is life, that nothing else exists, like, for me, I'd love to know your take on it. Sure. So if you're subconsciously or unconsciously bringing out patterns from the generational line of I'm unworthy of love, you're unworthy of life. To me, what's closer to the exit door? So that's the route that I do. But I would love to know the differences from you in terms of guilt, shame and unworthiness, and is there a close tie between all three?
Really great question, and you described guilt perfectly. It is related to an act. It's your conscience. I've done something that I believe to be wrong. It goes against my values. Whether people are watching me or not, I still feel guilty. So even if I, let's say, steal some money out of mum's wallet, I've done that in the past, and I'll feel guilty. Nobody knows, nobody's caught me, but I'm feeling guilt. Shame is when I get caught and people are like, oh, how could you do that? And then I go, oh, the shame. And so sometimes you can feel them at the same time because you're guilty and you're shameful at the same time. You're feeling shame at the same time. So that's the difference between the two, and I think they get confused a lot. When we bring in I'm not good enough, so not enoughness, we bring in unworthiness. In psychology, what we call those, they're evaluations. Yeah, they're not emotions, but they are evaluations. They're an evaluation that turns into a belief. Because I am unworthy is a belief, and under that belief is actually fear. There's shame, there's probably some guilt, there's all of the, if you look at an emotion wheel, the top half of that emotion wheel where all the feelings are unpleasant, more often than not, if I have a belief that I'm unlovable, unworthy, not good enough, I'm experiencing a multitude of those emotions. So when we separate them as it's not an emotion, it's a belief, and it has a lot of unpleasant emotions, and we got to help our clients through that, then we go, okay, let's start with the belief. Let's help you now tolerate some of these negative feelings, the unpleasant feelings. And let's go back to the memories where those belief systems started to cement for you. That might have been with mum and dad. It might have been with a sibling. It might have been a traumatic experience of some sort. Something that would have shaped you to believe that about yourself. And we go there. This is why in what you do and what I do, we pull the arrow back in order to shoot it forward. And I'll be like, I don't want to go back there. Why are you making me go back there? And it's like, actually, you can make the arrow drop or you can actually shoot it forward. It's up to you. But we've got to go back to some degree. Beautiful.
And I will definitely get into that in real depth later, because just one thing I've got a lot of hate from online is if I'm bashing traditional therapy. I'm like, no, I'm just saying it's evolved to we see that it's the body that kind of keeps the score, so it's got to be more focus on the somatics and the energetics first, and then it's not, for me it's never this versus that. It's like and how can we bring it, and when is it appropriate to go to one more than the other, and then there's a different dynamics between working with the energetics of a male and a female and all these other things. But that's amazing. I've never put it in that with the guilt and the shame side of things like that. How I'm hearing it is like shame is getting caught in the act, and guilt is like catching yourself in the act and feeling that horrible feeling anyway. So that's really cool. When you spoke about the suppression of the throat chakra because of shame, this is something that I've spoke a multitude of times in men's circles and stuff. I'd like to think I'm very well read with masculine and feminine energetics and trying to understand what that's like for a female. I actually spoke about it in a men's circle this morning. I said, listen, I don't know what it's like to have a man inside me. I don't know what it's like to have a womb. I don't know what it's like to have a period. I don't know what it's like to have PMS, to be pregnant, to give birth. I try my best to understand through theory, and then I say, hey, I've read this, like, how is that for you, and learn more from direct experience and listen, but I don't know what that's like. I said, however, I know exactly what it's like for us as men. And I remember reading that women that have experienced some sort of sexual assault or sexual trauma, there's a direct relation between the larynx, or the throat, and the cervix. So there's so many people that have experienced like horrible tragedies here. That's why, again, from a nervous system point of view, it's just frozen stuff, and they can't speak about it. They're just stuck in dorsal or freeze, to be honest. But as guys, it's the same. It's just a different lens. I don't know in terms of chakras or energy centers. I just know that if we've been inappropriately touched in a certain way and molested, or if you had sexual abuse from a woman that was maybe weaponising sex against you in certain ways, it still has the same thing, because men, we don't talk about it. So can you talk a little bit more into shame in general and how that blocks out, or even any direct, obviously within reason, and what you're comfortable with the sexual trauma?
Yeah, I mean, from a psychological lens, I can definitely offer a perspective. It's shame, when experienced for a long time, can turn into this thing we call toxic shame. It's so visceral, it's so real, but it's ever present. It's kind of like the baseline that I exist in. So, you know, in the example that you've given is maybe there was some sexual assault in childhood. Maybe it was recurrent, and this, you know, child had to live through years of this abuse. And this is a very, very common thing that I get to see with my clients. Majority of them, you know, most people hear this and they go, this person must be locked up at home somewhere, and they never leave their house. And I'm like, no, these like founders, CEOs, athletes, super successful people with incredible histories of what they've had to survive through. And what they come to me is they've reached a point where the toxic shame it's reached a point where it's absolutely running rampant in their lives. So the way shame impacts someone's life and body in general is it activates certain parts of the body, nervous system included, and it freezes you, or it makes you flight and avoid, or it makes you fight, or it makes you fawn. But because you've been feeling it for such a long time, it actually translates into a personality trait. So people who've been fighting for a long time in that state of nervous system activation, they're generally super type A. They're dominant, they're demanding of perfection from others, they might be a bit bullying, they might be a bit angry and called aggressive in the workplace or at home. Guys who are, and people in general who are very over-identified with flight, they are micromanagers, they're compelled by perfection, they are workaholics, they cannot stop. Sometimes they're a little bit ADHD. I can really relate to the flight too. And then you've got freeze. The guys that are stuck in freeze, they contracted. They are hermits. They are achievement phobic. They've never reached their potential. And finally, fawn, they generally tend to be in DV relationships, domestic violent relationships. They tend to have this tendency to end up being doormats in relationships and codependent, and they were the parentified child. So where I'm going with that is, when shame and fear and nervous system activation, because of trauma from an early age, becomes constantly present in our bodies without any form of healing, our body adapts to it, our mind adapts to it, and the way it adapts to it is through those traits. Yeah. And I get clients who come to me and have been operating from their trauma for a very long time. It's served them, but it's also destroying them. Yeah. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, 100%. There's so many parts in that as well. Like, even like there's elements of how you described the last part there. That's where like the Stockholm syndrome and stuff can come in for a lot of people, where it's like, well, this is my normal. I know it's not serving me, but at least it's shit, but it's familiar shit. Yes. And we're talking about extreme cases of abuse and stuff here, but that can be from anything where we stay in the comfort zone, and it's easier to stay here than go there. And that's why I'm leaving Bali.
I guess, yeah. And
it's time to jump.
For sure. Yeah. And to come back to something more specific, as you were saying, and how does shame then continue to impact someone's life and close their throat up? We know shame as an emotion creates that response. There's a set of, every emotion has an action urge and a body sensation attached to it. With shame, it's a contraction. It's the throat getting smaller and more contracted as well. It's the voice getting really small and weak because the body's saying, don't talk. Yeah. Don't try to argue, because right now you need to stay with the tribe. And if you say anything, the tribe is going to say, get the hell out. So all of the things that it does is literally for protection so that you do not get ostracized. But then again, in terms of someone who's coming in, they're in a modern world, they don't need to necessarily feel shame in that way.
Yeah.
What we start to do is start to incrementally get them to feel the shame and act. So we induce shame. Mm-hmm. So do a typo when you text your boss.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, cringe. When you send that email, say the wrong word or say the wrong time. Be 5 minutes late to a meeting, because when we're scared of shame, when we're riddled with shame, we are perfectionistic because we are scared that just anyone might see our flaws. So if I'm perfect, then I'll be safe. But we want to go, actually, you don't need to be perfect. You're okay the way you are. You're imperfect. You're messy. It's all right. And here are some things that we can slowly give you that you can start to feel shame about and sit with. Because it's unjustified shame. It's not real shame that's going to be supportive of you. Because if I'm going to run around naked, I need to be feeling shame. And I need to be putting some clothes on. But there's not many instances in our modern world where shame is really justified.
And there's not a lot of instances in the modern world where people feel shame about running around with no clothes on, especially on Instagram. A separate podcast, perhaps. What I think is really evident for anyone listening is that from a traditional top-down field like psychology, how you talk is very different. So from being in the system to not shaming the system, but stepping out to have a more of a holistic approach, what did you see within the system that fundamentally made you step out and create what you've created?
Yeah, really good question. I don't know if you know this, but I wasn't just in the system as a psychologist, I was a patient.
Okay.
I'd been hospitalized many times in my mid-20s, and that was the time that I was diagnosed with CPTSD. And I remember just going in, and there's fluorescent lights, and there's a doctor who asks you these questions without even looking at you properly. Luckily, I ended up in a place that was, I ended up getting private health insurance, which I know is very privileged. Not many people can afford that. Finally got access to a decent hospital that, gave a shit about how their setting looked. And it was more trauma-informed in their approach and in their setting and how they trained their clinicians. And I remember just going, oh, this feels good. This feels safe. I can stay here. And from then on, I was really motivated by making sure anyone who's gone through trauma receives trauma-informed care. And then as you said, I was in this system. I've worked in hospitals myself. I've worked in early psychosis teams. I've worked in the public sector, with the military, with charity organisations, my own business. And everywhere that I went, I collected a little bit of wisdom and put together something that made my approach mine. Because I think you can have two psychologists, but you can have two very different. When you meet a psychologist, you met a psychologist. When you meet a healer, you've met a healer. Everyone's so unique, and it's our special touch and set of experience that makes us who we are and attracts our ideal client. When I came to Bali, I was blown away by how they do therapy. I was asked by a centre here in Bali to come and do a month. And when I came in, I worked with one client in 28 days. And we went deep. I've never done that in Australia. In Australia, you see a client in the waiting room and you're like, come on in, have 50 minutes, and then say, see you next week, same time. That traditional method.
This is what I get canned for. I mean, I'm not shitting on it. I'm like, that is what was the traditional method. For me, it was like, you saw, I was going to say the 40-year-old virgin, not the 40-year-old, something about Mary.
Yes.
When Ben Stiller, and he's pouring his heart out about Mary, and the guy's not even in the room, and he comes back with a napkin. I was like, I've never made out that it was that bad, but he asked a question, he's kind of looking over his shoulder, and he goes, time up.
That's time.
See you next week. And I was like, that's what I'm getting at. Talking, especially for a man point of view, is a great first step, because we don't traditionally, because it never felt safe to be vulnerable. We're doing that, again, we'll get to that later with men's work and stuff, it's a separate thing, but it's a first step, but you still need to feel. So when the traditional method that you were seeing in Australia, sorry, please continue for a minute. I just want to say, this disclaimer, I'm not shitting on people.
And I also don't want to shit on that method,
background
because
is therapy.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
so
great.
I'm engaged to a therapist and a social worker.
We have to speak up about what we know doesn't, work for a certain group of people. For my clients who had more mild to moderate presentations, whatever that might be, it worked. It was perfectly fine. But for my clients who I seem to attract clients with CPTSD, I feel like we attract who we are a year ago, 2 years ago, 10 years ago. And so I'm attracting these beautiful clients that I deeply want to help. And I'm like, I can't just see you 50 minutes.
Yeah.
And then at the end, I don't know if you're safe. And I don't know, not that they need bubble wrapping. Clients with CPTSD are the most resilient in the world.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, I just can't keep seeing you suffer for years. When I've come to Bali and in 28 days, over 30 hours of therapy, I think it was like close to 40 hours of therapy, using modalities like EMDR and internal family systems and schema therapy, specifically designed for trauma treatment, and then throw in somatic healing and all the other beautiful stuff. And then you just watch the client, instead of suffering for a year or two, suddenly make progress within a month.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't leave Bali. Literally, this is why I stayed in Bali.
Beautiful. Do you think, or two things before I ask that question, for men that are watching this, right, I think for an educational piece to hear this, right, and this is why I don't ever say this versus that, like, because, excuse me, if you understand something, it's kind of the gateway to go, oh, let me lean into that a little bit more. So if we do, this is where knowledge is important, but experience is the big thing. Like, again, if you had, you're the medicine because of everything you've been through, that pain's your purpose. Like, I don't want anyone to go through that. I'm not going to save you, but I'll be the guide from the side, which is everything that I stand for as well, which is so important. So men hearing this from an expert in this field talk about, I think me asking the questions as well to bring it to them, go, there's a guy that's asking harsh questions that's been in my head. There's a woman, actually, there's that nurture part, so they're getting the masculine, feminine, male, female, mother, father part by proxy as well, to go, I'm safe to kind of go there. Something I bring up time and again that we get shamed of is men, is our feelings and our emotions. But no, we need to Google them.
Yeah.
No one ever tells us what they are, how to navigate them. It's okay to have them, but we feel them every day regardless. We just can't put a name on it. It's a very simple question for me now looking back, but for people in the beginning, it was really, honestly, like, what is a feeling, what is an emotion, and what's the difference? I'd love to hear it for your lens.
It's such a great question because, you know, when I first started as a psychologist, I still remember, you know, you're new and you're fresh and you just want to help everyone, and then you kind of have this cookie cutter model that you've been given at uni, and you're like, I'm going to save the world with it. And then you go in and you're like, shit, I don't know what I'm doing. And through years of experience, you start to learn you cannot work with everyone the same way, and this needs to shift, that needs to change. I used to say to my male clients, how does that feel? And that's the quickest way to shut down any male client, because it's like, you cannot be asking them directly that until you've given them the tools to be able to explore their emotions, understand them, and then let's go into that territory. It's a more graded approach in working with men, and instead of big open-ended questions that are a little bit more narrower initially, because we're literally retraining someone or training someone to be able to understand their emotional internal world. And that wasn't given to them as a child. So you're literally kind of, as healers, as therapists, what we do is we take our clients from children. This is the way, and this is not dismissive or condescending in any way, but I see my clients coming in and they're so young and they're beautiful. I see boys and girls, and I have this immense love and appreciation for my clients. And as we hold their hands and we walk through life with them, you see them growing up and maturing and gaining that, and suddenly they're in that adolescent age, and then they get into young adulthood. So it's beautiful, and I love the process. But tangent, of course, coming back to what a feeling is, people get it confused with thoughts and beliefs.
Yep.
So a feeling is something that is quite visceral. You feel it in your body. It's a body experience. It's not a head thing. Yes.
I was like, you can't think your feelings.
You can't
sorry,
think your
boys.
feelings. I'm sorry, but that's the truth.
Yeah.
You will have thoughts about your feelings. You will label and evaluate your feelings. But here's the quickest way to know a feeling. I feel like an idiot. That's not a feeling. That's a judgment. I feel lonely. that's a feeling. Rule of thumb, if it's one word, more often than not, it is a feeling, it's an emotion. And it carries a kind of blueprint of sensations and action urges. So anger, shame, guilt, more nuanced things like depressed, insecure. But then it gets a bit more complicated, because then you get evaluations that are one word and you're like, but is that a feeling or is it an evaluation of what I'm feeling? Abandoned, rejected, unworthy. All of them are not actually feelings, they're evaluations. I'm feeling abandoned is an evaluation of what's happening to me right now. Maybe an evaluation of someone else's actions or my own actions. The actual feeling under abandoned, so I'll usually get the emotion wheel out and I kind of go, okay, pick a feeling out of that. So in the beginning, I'm like, you won't know the difference between a thought, an evaluation, and a feeling, but here's a cheat sheet for you. And the emotion wheel becomes people's best friend. And they're like, I don't know. I say, oh, that's okay if you don't know. I don't know means that you just haven't had a look at it. Yep. So let's have a look at this emotion wheel. Okay, what do you think stands out to you? And usually it's a cocktail, hint, hint. Because no one just feels one feeling. Yeah. But learning that concept takes time and practice, because it's a skill. It isn't something that you're born with.
I have my big five that show up time and again. And I do think there's a hierarchy of come in at different levels, but I'm talking like from the inner baby, inner child, all the way like being the first abandonment wound. As Groff talks about in his 4 perinatal matrices, is the being banished from the Garden of Eden. Like you're leaving the oneness to come back into this physical, like, oh, I'm going down in here to the world of duality. Like, no, thank you. But there's so much we can go back. But for me, from the early kind of inner child stuff that gets stuck in the tissues is anger, fear, sadness, guilt, and shame. Yeah. Would you agree they're the kind of big five
they're the primaries,
that come up time
sure.
and again for people?
Absolutely,
and then you've got the secondaries and everything else that goes from there. Love how you articulate all this stuff. Would you say that the typical traditional model is failing the basic needs at the core essence of the everyday human?
Amen. It really, really is. It's disappointing because these traditional models were developed mostly, especially in Australia. I can speak to Australia. It's very hard to speak to the UK or the US, but I would imagine they're not too different. In Australia, the traditional model is that you would go in to see your general practitioner and you say, I'm not feeling too well. They'll write you a referral to a psychologist or a psychiatrist, or they'll give you some tablets and send you home. A good general practitioner will give you a referral to a psychologist, but you'd be surprised that still doesn't happen sometimes. They'll go, here's some Lexapro. And I don't diss medication. I've been on medication. It saved my life. But there's a time and place. And I don't think the general practitioners that we go to seek help from are actually properly mental health trained. And their awareness of what are the things that needs to happen before I give out medication, it's concerning. And so let's say they take that, they get lucky and they get a doctor who's going to give them a referral to a psychologist. They'll call the psychologist, 3 months wait. In Australia, it's averaging 2 to 3 months wait list, which is,
still to this day?
In COVID, it was like longer. It was like 6 months. Wow. It was atrocious, Right now, it's, you're averaging, psychiatrists are the same as well. Yeah. Jesus. And these are also the talented psychologists, the ones that have a really good reputation. And they tend to have even bigger lists. So you might then see this person and, the government only gives you, rebates to a certain amount, so you can only afford to see them once every 2 weeks. And we know mental health doesn't get treated in that way. There needs to be a more intensive approach. There needs to be now, okay, well, let's look at your nutrition. What's happening to you physically? Let me look at all of the dimensions that make you you. And maybe if we address all of those and the people that we get to address all of those talk to each other, then you can have progress. Then you can have healthy outcomes. But it's like, here's some medicine, or go see a psychologist. You may see them or not, because you might look at it and go. And we keep failing. People keep falling through the gaps. And these are the people that are suffering in silence because the government is not doing much in order to step up and recognize the research behind mental health is that we need to look at the person as a whole.
Yeah.
But they're not acknowledging it. So the traditional method is letting us down.
I lived for 6 years in Australia, do you know that?
Okay, no, I didn't.
No, I lived in
Whereabouts?
Perth for the majority of it, 5.5 years.
Yeah.
I had half a year in Maroochydore on the sunny coast. But it was 2016 when I was diagnosed with my cancer.
Yeah.
And 12 weeks later they couldn't find that. But in the instance, and this is, I'll come back to the story in a minute, I believe the holy trinity of wellness. Like, so this is like more proactive and preventative rather than reactive and
Yes.
like repentive, right? But obviously things happen, life moments happen, we all get stuck in the tissues, as we know. It's like trauma is a hit home every episode. It's not the thing or the experience, it's the residue and the incompletion of the nervous system. I think it's stuck in the tissues. A lot of people still think, I didn't have trauma. And I was like, it could be you is 3 days old, open your eyes from a nap, you're wrapped up like this, all you can see is there and you feel abandoned and ashamed. But mum hasn't slept for 3 days, but sod's law, in that moment she's finally got to go for a pee because she's been by your side, and then that's the moment you go, because something energetically feels that no one's here.
Yeah.
And you go, and you can't think, we can't hindsight
pre-verbal.
trauma, we can't communicate it, but we've just came from the oneness. So we're maybe closer to the divine chronologically, but when then we're cast into this illusion of separation,
Yes.
what the fuck's going on? That could be the snapshot that gets stuck in here, that just when someone leaves you for a shorter period of time, oh my God, I'm not safe, I'm going to be abandoned. So it doesn't need to make cognitive sense, it's going to be stuck in here. Anyway, I digress. But like all going well, how you can have rejuvenescence and vitality and longevity, for me it's self-care practices in alignment with the laws of nature. I don't like you saying this, but they call it alternative therapies, but to me it's natural therapies.
Yes.
And traditional medicine. So I did that thing
That's
in
powerful.
Perth years ago. I said, listen, that's not the hierarchy, that's just if all's going well, but every now and again, like, you need to spin the wheel, because you might need that at the top for what's going on in the moment. So I was doing an event back in 2018 in Gloucester Park in Perth. So it was like a massive expo downstairs, 40 different stalls, and upstairs we had speakers for 2 days. And I was talking, and there was a certain person I won't name. I love him, but it attracts a certain type of people. They're very rah, fuck the system. And I'm kind of that as well, but also I'm always, how is it also serving us? There's two sides to everything.
Yes.
And I said, listen folks, I mean, you can douse yourself, you can drink frankincense under your tongue, you can rub good quality CBD oil with the right amount of THC into the joints, you can have your magnesium flights, you can fast, you can detox, you can meditate, you can do all that stuff. It says the Kwinana freeway out there is fucking crazy. It says you Aussie drivers are a bit nuts. I says, and if somebody smashes into you and you go through the windscreen at 90 kilometres an hour, I said, and your spleen's lying across the road, I'm sorry, you're not going to meditate that back into your body. You're going to need to be very fucking grateful that an ambulance is coming and somebody spent 7 years learning how to put you back together. So everything has its place and a place for everything. I said, and shaming things, I says, sit with us. It comes back to what we spoke about in the beginning. That's just showing you where there's internal shame within yourself.
Yeah.
And we need to heal that. Anyway, I digress. That to me is the holy trinity that we need to go with in the beginning, and that doesn't get taught. But when you were speaking about mental health and how traditional GPs and practitioners, they're not equipped. For me, I went back to when I had the biopsy, because we never knew what it was, and from the biopsy told us it was a cancer, it was a sarcoma, DFSP. So the next thing was just to go and see a plastic surgeon and blah blah blah. So I went, and the guy never even looked at me. When I walked in with my then wife, and he's like, oh, yeah, have a seat, read, he's just looking. So I'd went for an MRI before then, as per they were telling us to do. And my wife at the time, she was a Bowen therapist, Bowen, and they work with the fascia, right? And they say the fascia is the gateway to the soul. And I never knew that to the depth back then, but for me, from a trauma lens, there's so much caught in the connective tissue in the fascia. And I had my own business at the time. It was a PT back in the day, but it was always like holistic care as well. We'd done seminars and stuff. So he never even looked at me. But as a man, what pissed me off was he never even acknowledged her and how she might be feeling and all this stuff. Like, she's having to carry this, but and like show no weakness to be the supportive nurture. But her head must have been all over the place, which then made me feel guilty and then go back and forward. Blah blah blah. That's the ping pong of relationships in another podcast. But he never even looked. He's like, Reid, okay. He's like, yeah, definitely. Yeah, MRI, okay, right. I don't care what the MRI says. Still not looking at me, by the way. Yes, this usually goes really deep. And your notes here that your lymph nodes are popped up right hand side. Okay. Right, what we're going to do, I don't care what the MRI says. We're going to cut away part of the rectus abdominis muscle. We're going to remove the fascia. And it's probably in your lymphatic system, so we need to cut them out as well. So I stood up and I put my hand over his shoulder, and then he looked up and I was like, thanks, doc. And he's like, oh, I haven't done anything yet. And I went, and nor will you.
Yeah.
And he said, sorry, I'm confused. I said, I think you are, bro. I says, let me give you a crash course on Scottish men, shall I don't care what the MRI says. It's probably in here just to be safe. So the scar's here, but they wanted to cut me all the way right around there just to be safe. And everything in me was screaming, do not fucking do this. So I said, you've not even had the common courtesy to ask me what I do for a living, or my wife. In fact, you've not even looked at her to see how she is. I said, and now you want to do all this? I said, but society has you as the prince and I'm the pauper. I said, so my early defence, saying my lymph nodes, are popped up to I said, of course they're going to be raised. There's fucking cancer in my body. I said, but you're going to cut them out, put my body through unnecessary trauma because, to quote you, you don't care. And just in case, I said, so if it comes back secondary, you'll treat it as a completely isolated event and round we go. And that might be different. Then you throw radiotherapy or chemo at me. I was like, fuck you. I said, you'll not be touching my body. Once Sam grabbed your stuff, we're leaving. She was like, what the fuck? And I get outside and burst into tears. I was shitting myself. But the voice was going, do not do it. Yeah. And then 12 weeks later, they couldn't find any. Because I did everything. People say, what did you do? I was like, you're quick in asking me what I'd never done. But part of it was the thoughts and emotions. I wasn't living as someone that had cancer. But that was the thing that pulled up the Scotsman and the Libran, always looking for a fight against the system and injustice. I was like, that's fucked. And then, of course, you follow the money and you realise that it's more profitable to be seen to be looking for a cure than actually giving people the cure. However, that's not an absolute to everyone that goes into the system, because I'm a great believer that the biggest void leads to your highest value. So what you never had and the hardship you had to go through is why you've dedicated your whole life to helping other people. I wasn't saved. I just had a better standard of care and more holistic that wasn't in the traditional system. Let me do the same thing and let me go and develop that even further, which I think is...
I really like that.
I think that's available to all of us, though. Do you not think so? If we if we do that stuff in the beginning?
For sure. What you speak to is such an important thing that a lot of people go through, but they don't have access to their intuition. So the part of you that went, get the hell out of there. That's amazing, because you probably had done some work on yourself to recognize that there was some intuition, and in that moment you decided to listen to that intuition. Many steps went into you walking out. And unfortunately, for some of our clients, maybe even majority of our clients, when we first meet them, they would not leave. You've got a white coat on. I am listening to you. You're the authority, and I am just a mere patient. And on top of, this is the obedience experiments in psychology, that people will do what they are told as long as the person has some level of authority. Yes. And in fact, the first thing I say to my clients when I first meet them is, I am not the authority in your life. Yeah. You are the expert in your life. I'm just here and supporting you, and I walk by your side. I will never tell you what to do, but I will support you and guide you. Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a really important step. So you're back on the ground level with them. Yeah. But to not have received eye contact, to have not even, the most dehumanizing, this is on that end of the spectrum of dehumanizing care. Most of us have experienced something there, and that is also terrible. But on the other side of that, there is trauma-informed, humanizing care that is available to people, and it usually is given by people who've gone through their struggles.
Yeah.
Like you said before, because we've been through the system, because we've worked in the system, we know what we need to do to protect our clients from it.
So tell people a little bit more about that. Like, walk me through your 7 pillars approach.
Okay, so when I sat down and I decided to go, okay, I've worked at this place in Bali, I loved it. They're amazing at what they do. I did another stint in another place in Bali, and I was like, okay, here are some people who are actually not qualified to do what they're doing. And, I had two role models, one that showed me what not to do and one that showed me what to do. And I'm grateful to both of them. In that moment, I was like, oh, why did I take on this opportunity? It was a terrible time. It was an awful 6 weeks. But it was the very thing I needed in order to go, stop telling yourself that you can't. Stop telling yourself that this is someone else's dream. And I think going through the struggle of working for someone who was, the only way I can describe them is a charlatan. They were not trained to do the work that they do, and they were trusted with people's mental health and lives, and they were endangering lives. And so I was like, it is my responsibility. It is my responsibility to step up. And I was like, just step the fuck up, do it. And so I sat down, I stopped working, sat down for a few months, and I was like, I'm going to develop the model that I know is going to work. And I did it from what I know about my profession, from what I know about medical science and my background in that. And I did it from what I've learned about Bali and all the incredible energetic healers that I've worked with, somatic healers that I've worked with, and just the energy of this beautiful island and how much it's given us. And so I came up with the 7 pillars that I think are essential for someone to be able to achieve healthy outcomes in their mental health. First one is medical, because as you said, we cannot poo-poo a whole profession just because we want to just throw rocks at it and hope for the best, and so we attract more clients to us. No, there's a time and place. We have a medical team who observes the program and has oversight.
Beautiful.
And then there's psychology, led by me and the other clinicians. And that is where we do the bulk of the work. So in a 21-day program, you're getting about 30 hours of psychological therapy. And a lot of people go, oh my God, you're talking for 30 hours? I can't talk for 30 hours. And I don't expect my clients to. We use therapies that actually allow you to access your body, to work with what's in your body. We also use strategies like neuro feedback, which doesn't actually require you to talk. It allows you to talk directly with your brain and have a conversation with that. So there's modalities in there that don't actually require you to sit in front of a therapist and talk about stuff. And of course, there's talk therapy too. That's necessary. There's a time and place for everything. And then we've got the somatic healing, because we need to connect your head to your body. You cannot live life with a head experience, and our clients come to us, super high achieving, intelligent, amazing people, full head experience of life. They just might as well come like a balloon. And so I literally say to them, we're going to help you plug this into this. It's going to feel uncomfortable, but eventually you'll get used to it, and it'll feel like a safe place and a resource for you. And then there's energetics, because I used to, reject the woo-woo, and Bali's just completely transformed that. I'm like, I've seen things and felt things, and that I cannot explain in science. I just cannot. We do not have the science to explain some of these things. And just because we don't have the science for it now doesn't make it not true. Yep. It just means science is lagging. It'll catch up. Yep. And I'm not going to wait for it to catch up in order for me to include it. And I've got this amazing healer who actually worked on my sciatica pain that the medical model couldn't do anything about for 18 months. I see this guy for 3 sessions across 3 weeks. God, I lift heavier than I've ever lifted before. And I'm like, I can't explain that, but I must include that. Yeah. And he's actually a really cool part of my program.
Amazing.
And everyone loves him. He's like Bali dad to everyone. He's 68 years old. He looks like he's 50. Just an incredible soul. And then, of course, we've got nutrition, naturopathy, and movement. those I think are just building the foundations, because we need a healthy foundation to build off and to work on. And with those three, we're able to heal the gut, the liver, the brain. A lot of our clients come with addictions or, self-neglect across years and years. And so those three tend to rebuild those beautiful foundations.
Amazing, mate. I love that. I love the holy numbers as well. I love 1, 3, and 7. So for me, we've got the 7 areas of life. We'd like to go through it, and it's from my background as a teacher back in the day, as a school teacher. Again, it's what was missing.
Yeah.
And it's like spirituality and nature, mental and emotional literacy, physical wellness. We get taught sport at school, but we don't get taught like physical wellness, like the nutrition, how to grow your own food, like in touch with the land, none of that stuff. Sexuality and intimacy, definitely never get taught that at a Catholic school. Family and relationships, the big one where it all starts. Social play and leadership, like have fun doing what you do, and career and finances.
Yeah.
So again, it's like the 7 voids that, in my opinion, it was there that I was like, right, I need to go and create something. The same with you, like going through it. And I think how you talk about it is a really healthy, balanced way of like, we don't heal shame, we throw more shame on people, but the same token, this was like beyond my choice. It chose me that, I'm a custodian of this work. It's my responsibility to bring it to the everyday person. And I think for all of us, like the balloon, I use that as an analogy as well, because the knot and then the tiny little bit where you blow it in, I was like that's most people's body. That's the head in terms of the mental space where they try and heal their stuff. I said we need to just untie the knot. I says, and it just becomes one, it becomes elastic, and then you can blow up and make shapes. You can make it any way you like.
Yeah, I like that.
But that is the kind of analogy, or the lollipop. You kind of stuck there, like, just on this head. I was like, no, there's so much more. But I think for when we've all went through some base level of trauma, and its simplest way to talk about a very complex situation, like the body doesn't feel safe, so of course it's going to go to the head. Of course it's going to go there, but then the more you do something, the better you get at it. So I think humility of what was once rejected within self, to first accept it in self, to embody it within self, and then share it with everyone else, that's a big part of why I think you're different. The other stuff is just bells and whistles. It's amazing, I'm not shitting on your work, but your work, and that's not coming from, as you say, like a 50-minute session that you had with someone once upon a time. It's walking over hell's fire more times than you probably care to remember. Yeah, absolutely. And I like the idea that when we, by embracing all of these modalities, we don't create shame in accessing one of them. Yeah.
Because if I go on my channel and I preach, the medical model's awful, or coaches are terrible, or and people listen to me and I'm authority, and then they go, she must be right because she wears a lab coat.
Yeah.
I don't, but
yeah, but then what you do, yeah.
Yeah. And so they're like, okay, well, they'll feel an inner shame about needing that. And shame is what stops us from accessing the supports that we really need.
Yeah.
So we have an obligation as healers to not shame people for the support that they need just because it's not what we're offering.
Yeah.
We need to be able to understand the variety of healing modalities that's available and have an appreciation for it. Yeah. What does that mean? What can they do that I can't actually offer? By creating the 721 method, I fully acknowledge I'm just putting forward psychology. That's all I can do. I can't sit there and talk about nutrition, naturopathy, or the medical world. That's not for me. And I know my place. And then I get these experts from all of these other fields, and they come together and they support the client. So we have to realize that we're not, everything to the client. We can't be. We're a drop in the ocean of a client's life and world. That's all we're going to be. They have a complex world around them. And it doesn't mean that drop in the ocean is not meaningful or impactful. It is. But we also have to acknowledge that. Yeah,
I think it just reminds us that we're all water. Whether you're the drop from the leaf or the river or the ocean itself, that it just takes us back, and that's the energetics, everything is so important. That 7-to-1 ratio that you do that's unprecedented, why, and I feel as if we've touched on it, but to your model specifically, why is that level of intensive care so necessary with people with complex PTSD?
Yeah. It's, you touched on this a little bit earlier about a lot of people don't realize they have some form of trauma because they've always associated trauma with this awful, overt sexual or physical abuse, or maybe even verbal abuse. But what they don't realize is that's capital letter T trauma.
Yeah.
And then you've got the small letter T's where your needs weren't met. And we all have needs from the minute that we're born, from the second that we're born, maybe even pre-birth, some would say. And all the way up to the day that we die, we have these needs. And the categories that they exist in is attachment, our need for love, connection, safety, security, feeling wanted, seen, heard. That's all attachment. Our need for autonomy, our need for freedom and expression, our need for spontaneity and play, our need for boundaries. So which is really important, especially for our men, because some of our boys were taught no boundaries, and that creates a lot of problems in their lives. So when those needs are not met predictably, consistently, reliably, those three words are really important, what happens is a small letter T trauma. Yeah. Because I don't know, my parent is always getting drunk, so I don't know if they're seeing me. They hearing me? Do they know? I don't feel safe. They're unpredictable. They're falling asleep with a cigarette in their hand, something overt like that. Or my parent is always late home. They'll leave the key for me outside and I have to walk in. Or, like you said, pre-verbal, I'm left to cry in my cot. And I cry and cry and cry. And I learn quickly that no one's there for me. And so many other examples that we can come up with.
And I love your speaking to this, because I feel as if sometimes just hearing it from the same person sometimes can just I feel as if I'm banging the drum and I can be the nagging parent for some people. So I love Francine Shapiro's work. I reference it a lot in Big T and Little T. And I was like, that's the thing. I said it all comes to the same thing of feeling that unconditional love is absent. Yeah. And that's just the essence of what we all want and need.
And our parents didn't have to be perfect.
No.
They were not required to be. I think the statistic is something really atrociously low. If they could meet your needs predictably, reliably, consistently, let's say, I think it was 50 or something %. Don't quote me on this, but it was something really atrociously low. So as parents, they didn't have to do that much. And I hope whoever's aspiring to be a parent or is a parent also feels some level of relief that I don't need to be perfect. Yeah. I'm not going to fuck up my children just because one time I didn't, hug them. So it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be perfect, and your parents didn't have to be perfect. And this is why sometimes I'm like, yeah, you had a good family, and they're like, but I had a good parent and really good family, nothing was wrong. We dig a little bit deeper and we see all of those things. So first step is actually supporting our clients to really acknowledge the child. Yes, as an adult you don't find that traumatizing, but the 3-year-old was traumatized. That was traumatizing to a 3-year-old who is watching their parent turn channel after channel and feel invisible. That is death for a child. That's what it feels like for a child. So that becomes a chunk of the work we do when people first arrive. Acknowledgement, validating themselves finally after years of invalidation. But to answer your question, why do we need to go this intensively? Because there's just layers and layers and layers to that onion of CPTSD. As a CPTSD survivor, I know what it's like to peel one layer and go, oh shit, here's one more. Well, here's another. And it's this spiral upward of going, I'm kind of revisiting similar themes, but I am going up. Yeah. I am going up. But you need a lot of assistance, because every time you're looping up, you need a team or a person to support you in that. You shouldn't have to go through it alone. No. But a lot of the clients that come to us have never done any of this work at all. Yeah. So having that team that can really hold them through it and support them and removing them from the triggers, putting them in this beautiful safe bubble temporarily to learn, understand themselves better, go through the intensity of what they need to visit, and then re-enter the world and integrate and apply that knowledge.
Let me phrase my question that I had here differently, because you've led into it beautifully. One, that you're quoting statistics, and also you've kind of answered that a little bit. But some people, and I'm not an advocate of looking for the home run or the one thing, it doesn't exist, but you're getting a 94% improvement rate in clients. is there like one foundational piece that you would say is attributing that more than traditional therapy, or is it the fact that there's a model of 7 very complementary, very different, but very needed to be side by side pillars?
It's the combination, and you've hit the nail on the head. You can grab one and it'll do a decent job, but it's not enough. And when you're treating something so complex, you have to respect the complexity. And the only way to do that is to address the complexity with a complex model that allows that. We then simplify it when they're in there, because we structure their days. And my goal is to make sure that whoever comes to the program is, when they leave, they can take that knowledge and apply it. From day one, we're talking about aftercare. From day one, we're talking about how can you make this approach that we're using right now something that you can apply to your life and become habit. Because then we've done our job well.
Yes.
But, I think Stephen Bartlett was actually talking about this yesterday, and it's really fresh in my mind. He said, you can be the best at one thing, and that's really rare, but you can find 2 skills and become the best at those, or you can become really good at those, and collectively, that now means that you have a deadly combination. And imagine if you have multiple. So I kind of thought about it, and I was like, Ascendant as a business is like that. We grab the combination of these things, and as a collective we've created a skill set, a thing that we can deliver to our clients that is actually the best that we can offer, as opposed to silos of these different services. And even if this single service is very good at what they do, but because they're separated and never talk to each other, it's not as effective.
Totally agree. That's why our program, our 6-month, was called Be the One.
Yeah.
And I say a part of the story of creating that was because I was looking to invest in a program with this, because I was sick of just tickling around the edges. I wanted to get to the root of the trauma once and for all, and it just never existed. So I'd invested a lot in multiple different ones, and I was like, fuck it, I'll create it.
Yeah.
And we went. So in terms of I feel like time is getting faster than ever, and humanity is massively shifting paradigms just now. What do you feel the future of mental health looks like in the traditional model? And I suppose secondary to that is, what are you creating for the future?
I feel a sense of sadness around how the traditional model, which is fueled by in countries like Australia, it is driven by the public system, because people can't afford mental health care without the support of
Medicare.
Exactly. And so that is going to continue to be constrained, limited, unfortunately. And if people want real outcomes-driven, solutions-based mental health care, they really have to go outside of that system, which I think is awful, because our governments should be doing more. Because we should really be seeing what works as a government, but our governments are not invested in doing what works. They're invested in doing what looks good sometimes. Don't come at me for this comment.
I'll back you up.
But it's the truth.
Yeah.
It's the truth of it, and it's so sad. But when we look at the private sector, the work that we do is private. It's in the, people have to access us with private fund, and that's really difficult sometimes. But that is the avenue that I see most people going to want to lean on, because that's the avenue that gets them result. You have to look at it. Do you want to do the traditional model for 2 to 3 years and maybe get results? Or do you want to come in and do an intensive approach for a month, for 21 days, whatever it might be, give yourself some rapid results and momentum and push yourself forward? And yes, absolutely, then upkeep, because it's not 21 days and done, wash your hands, your mental health is sorted. You still have to do the upkeep, but you've got that result, you've got that momentum, you've got a chance at making sure you live the life that's meaningful to you. So my answer to that is, I don't have a lot of hope. I mean, I want to remain hopeful about the traditional model that's driven by the public sector, but I don't. But I'm really hopeful for the private sector, because there are people like you and me who come along and go, there's a huge gap.
Yes.
Why aren't we doing things about it? And then they go, okay, well, it's on me to do something about it. And then we need to be so loud. It is our responsibility to be shouting from the rooftops, from the mountains, about what we do, because people need to know it exists.
I love it. I think it ties into everything you said in the beginning with the shame and not being seen and not using our voice, that we need to be the ones
we
need
to be visible.
Yeah.
And I know, I mean, I can speak for myself. Visibility is difficult for me. Being here in this podcast, you know, I had to like have some big conversations with myself, because I'm like, I need to be visible. And yet there's an inner child in me that's going, but that's dangerous. And it's like, there's a deep need as humans we have to be seen and heard. And yet there's a child wound of like, but visibility was dangerous. Every time, you know, I was seen when I was a child.
Full expression.
That, yeah, exactly. That was shut down, or I was hurt for it. So we've got this conflicting battle that we have to fight through, just to make sure that we are visible and we are contributing to the world in a meaningful way.
If you haven't already, give this episode a like below. I'm glad that you're here and being seen.
I know, I am too.
I'm pretty sure people listening, them hearing this is going to help a lot. What do you see the role of consciousness and spirituality and how we weave that into what we're creating as well? Because for me, that's the big paradigm that we're shifting as well. I know you touched on a little bit with the woo-woo and the energetics, and trust me, where I came from, it just wasn't safe to go into this world. I rejected it for ages, but I've always had that little voice, and I've always had that a little bit, and it's always kind of scared me. But the cancer inside the thing's just massively.
Yeah.
I mean, I was loud, but I was loud about my journey. But I get shamed online as being a charlatan, as being a sociopath. He's going to hurt people, and I went, all I'm telling you is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you should do that. But then I got through it, and I went, no, in fact, do you know what I am? You shouldn't just be taking things as gospel. Like, go and do your own research. If it doesn't feel right, it's probably because it's not. Make an educated, informed decision. But for me, my lesson was not when the child that never felt heard. But then I perpetuated it as an adult, where I never listened to my truth. And then I blamed people. I played the name, blame and shame game. I was like, you're doing it, you're not listening to yourself, so why is the universe going to send you people that will listen to you when you don't every day? So it was about me expressing myself, and then having the shadow of, when you speak up, you can be attacked. And it's, I think it's Arthur Schopenhauer, it was this quote, it's like, all truths go through 3 stages. First thing, it's like, it's heavily ridiculed, it's violently opposed, it's accepted as true. So you've got to just speak it. If it feels right for you, and you've got lived experience, and you're getting the results that you're getting for other people. And I think what I love from a male point of view that are maybe open to this is that you've actually got data that you can show people as well.
Yeah.
Whilst actually getting them to go, oh, that's what a feeling is. Who knew?
You've got to offend people, you know. I've heard this, I can't remember who said it, but they're like, if you haven't offended people by 2 p.m, have you done your job? And this polarizing effect that we have to accept about being, you know, we need to own our place in this sector, in this industry. And sometimes, you know, it's a huge responsibility, but it's safe for us to say, I'm the expert in my field, and I need to be able to own that. But that comes with ridicule. It comes with, you know, Joe Blow going, that's not right, and getting angry at you. But because you're not diluting yourself and trying to appeal to everyone, and you're really owning what you believe in, you're going to get hate 100%.
Yep.
And I'm learning that slowly but surely, because part of my fear of visibility is I don't want to say something that the psychological community is going to alienate me for.
Okay.
And for a long time, and this is nice to be able to say it out loud, is like, I don't want to be alienated from my community of psychologists, but I'm also like, well, if I am, then so be it. I don't want to alienate myself from myself. I'm done abandoning my message and myself in service of being accepted by a group of people that, you know, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter. So my job here is to speak my truth, to speak to my tribe, even if it costs me. You know, people are saying, but you might lose your registration as a psychologist by the Australian, you know, Health Practitioner Board. And I'm like, if it means I'm actually speaking my truth and helping people, so be it.
Would you say that's the ultimate why behind your healing, why you do this and what you want for your clients, is just to like authentically be all parts of self?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All of the work that we do is supporting people ultimately to come back to their bodies and to find their true authentic self-expression. If we were to dilute it down to that, it's what it comes down to. And when they're authentically expressing themselves, then they're connected to, you know, their spirituality. Then they're more able to access different parts of themselves that are playful and spontaneous, and they can love and they can play, and that is ultimately what we're here to do.
Joy. Yeah, healing can be joyful again. That was mine. Shadow work, a lot of people don't go there, but the shadow was my shadow.
Yeah.
I actually forgot just to have joy again. And that might be a nice dovetail into this question. You work with a lot of high achievers and quote-unquote successful people on the outside. Through working with them, what commonalities have you seen underneath that facade?
It's that they used a certain type of fuel to get them that far, and gosh, they've gotten so far. And that same fuel is now poison. So what allowed them to move forward is now absolutely halting them. And that fuel is usually, you know, I've seen it
hitting me right between the eyes right now.
Yes. And it's like, I saw someone post this not long ago. It was like, oh, you need a certain level of delusion and madness and also a little bit of sprinkle of childhood trauma to get really far in entrepreneurship. And, you know, you see the comments and people are really agreeing to that. There's an awareness now that actually what made us feel not enough was what made us overcompensate to prove to the world that we're big and we're good and we're enough and we're lovable. And that overcompensation actually is the certain level of delusion and madness and output and hard work that's needed to achieve some ridiculous results. And then I'm trying to now tell my clients, okay, that was amazing that you did that. That's so resourceful, incredible work. But hey, there's a different fuel you can access. And they're like, but what if that takes away my success? And I'm like, no, hold on, hear me out. It won't take away your success. It'll give you a new edge over the rest of the people that you've been kind of racing with. And trying to convince people that they don't lose their edge when they heal their trauma, when they find a new fuel, is actually a lot of hard work.
Yes.
And the terror of letting go of old patterns and mechanisms that they used and embracing new ones, it's big. It's big.
I could talk about this stuff all day. I'm just conscious of the time we use. I don't want to overreach here, but I want people to know Zahra behind the metaphorical lab coat, right? So, psychology, traditional top-down, traditional male field in the beginning, although it's massively expanded over the last few decades, which is brilliant, but still having to move through that. What's the challenges been for a woman in that space, and whilst holding your own femininity and your softness and your nurture? Now we can see that you give that in spades to your clients, but that's the kind of masculine container that you have to set up, one for your own energetic boundaries, but also them and their safety. How does that look for you going forward in your life? Because I put this to everyone that comes on the podcast and all my work, that we go into business on some level to have a better family dynamic than we had, and I think all of us have a vision how that looks. For me, from 5 years old, I always wanted to be a husband and I always wanted to be a dad. Yeah. And I'm not saying that's the cookie cutter for everyone, as this podcast has went into. The cookie cutter isn't it, but I think we've all got a version of doing the things we love with the people we love the most for as long as possible, in the best health possible, being loved and accepted fully. How does that look for Zahra, the woman, beyond just being the Zahra who wakes up every day in copious service to everybody else? Who's helping you fill up? Yes.
Oh, gosh, being in Bali means I've got an incredible support network. And I've been estranged from my family for over 13 years. And that, I think, has been the very thing that's made me incredibly resourceful at building a family. And the friends that I've collected over the years who have become, parents and best friends and therapists, and whilst also having formal support, so being able to balance the informal and the formal supports, because every helper needs a helper. And we need a network of people to be able to support us, not one person. This is something that I did in my marriage, in my 20s, where I made that person everything to me. And they were my psychologist, my therapist, my brother, my all of it. And it was so much to put on one person. And it was for sure going to crumble a relationship. And I think that helped me understand that I need to diversify my support network, and I need to make sure that it is balanced with formal and informal, and I need to have the awareness to understand people's capacity. So over the years, it's been amazing to be able to go, wow, I have the most incredible and amazing support network, and that keeps me going. Beautiful. And I'm always looking for more, because I'm always looping. And, you know, I'm currently going through a loop right now, and I'm like, I'm ready for something to be released, for something to be understood. And I know I'm at the precipice of something that if I work through this with compassion, with the right support, that it can propel the business, propel me as a human being, and attract a certain level of person, potentially a partner, and a life that I'm actually wanting now.
Beautiful.
More than ever. So I'm excited about that, because the work is never done.
No.
And not because we're a project constantly being worked on, but because we're humans having a human experience, and we can either embrace it or reject it. And right now I'm at a point where I'm like needing to embrace that little.
It's beautiful. I think that's the journey of everything we talk about, is that we unconsciously project the shadow.
Yeah.
And then we need to go and integrate it, but sometimes the pendulum swings and we go from, I've made you my everything, so right, I'm going to be my own everything, and then we can neglect, and then the pendulum starts to swing back down. Well, I'll never pedestal another person again, or I'll have moments, because we're human, as you said, but I'm not going to be, and I see this more and more with the women that I work with, where it goes from maybe being really codependent, just like how mum was, to then we create this new age feminist movement where it's like Miss Hyper Independence, where I don't need no man. I was like, you don't, but you deserve to have one.
Yeah.
And like, really, are you open to receiving that? So like, hearing that coming back in, selfishly for me, makes me feel good.
Yeah.
I think some of the listeners as well, and going like, oh, married before, like me, just because it never worked the first time doesn't mean it can't work again. But
Sure.
I think you've got to go and do the inner work on self, because nothing will trigger you, challenge you, and elevate, or your word, ascend you more than being in a conscious relationship.
Oh my goodness, it brings up everything.
Yeah, the fuckers.
You know, there's two things that I recommend to all of my clients: get into a relationship and use that as a way to understand yourself. Not because we want to use each other, but, you know, being fearful of a relationship and not embracing it. You know, you can't build the skill set of being in a relationship by being alone. No. So doing the initial work alone is amazing and very necessary. But you've got to go into a relationship to learn the skills of a relationship.
That's the foam roll, and you still need to get under the bar and lift it again.
100%.
And it's fun when you get someone to spot you, right?
Yes, yeah.
And doing it
exactly. Yourself. I like that analogy. And the second thing you can do is become an entrepreneur.
Oh, fuck yes. Nothing.
And that is the quickest way to understand all of the stuff that you push down. And that can also be really important as well.
Yeah, I would agree. Right, let's finish with some quick fire questions.
Yeah, sure.
Right. For anyone that's listening, that's been going through maybe the traditional model and getting some results, but not all the way through, what is one thing you would want that person to know?
There's hope. And just because you've tried one thing and it didn't work, I don't want you to lose hope that this is going to be the case for everything that you try. So don't wash your hands and go, I've tried now. Go out there, roll up your sleeves and try something different I tried 4 therapists, 4 psychologists. Before the 4th one, I was like, oh, that's the right fit for me.
Beautiful.
So keep trying and try different modalities and encourage your specialists to talk to each other. If you can get them to talk to each other, you're going to have better care. Find people who believe in holistic care. Find people who are open to natural and alternative therapies as well. But it's kind of like dating. You don't just go to a therapist or a healer and you go, oh, and that's it, you don't date anymore. You go, okay, that wasn't the person for me. Let me keep dating until I find my person or my people.
Beautiful. If you could change one thing about how society approaches mental health, what would it be?
Just taking the stigma away. That somehow having mental health challenges is weak. I just want to take that and throw it away. Because it's the most incredible, bravest thing to be able to acknowledge that you're having challenges with mental health and being able to openly speak about how you're working your way through it.
Beautiful.
That mental health is, no different to physical health or spiritual health or any other form of health. We need to start talking about it. We need to talk about it openly.
What's the ultimate vision for Ascendant? What does the future hold for Ascendant?
The ultimate vision, it's such a big vision. It's exciting, and it's also You know, if a vision doesn't scare you as much as it excites you, then it's not big enough. So I'd love to be able to get the message out there. I'd love to be able to have an ascendant, you know, in the Middle East. You know, this is where I'm from. That is my home. And to be able to have an ascendant over there and another branch in the US. And to be able to spread this method out and make it commonplace. To be able to influence other practitioners to do the same. And maybe to even have the method be replicated by other people.
Nice.
But yeah, the vision is big, and it's exciting, and it scares me a little bit.
That's the best way.
But I got to do it.
Where can people find you?
Yeah. Easiest way to find me is Instagram or my website.
Yep.
So Instagram is Zahra_Ciardi or Ascendant_Bali, and website is www.ascendantbali.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so
for
much.
being such a pioneer in this space from lived experience. And for anyone watching that has got something from this or know that this can help someone else, please like, share, obviously subscribe, put on the notifications, do all that fun stuff below. But keep healing those soul wounds. You can call in your soulmate and you can live your soul purpose. Keep grounding and keep ascending. Until next time, we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
God bless
I
you,
really
buddy.
enjoyed this.
Wow, thank you to another amazing guest. I hope you got as much from that as I did. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe. It really helps. And if someone popped into your head while you were watching, please send it to them. Sometimes healing starts with a link from someone who loves us. And if you want to go deeper into healing your own root cause trauma that's blocking you from the love you deserve, please book a call with me at the link below. Beautiful souls like yours are worthy of that love. See you on the next pod.